We're gonna go ahead and get started. Mine's not gonna be real long, and I apologize to the people on the Zoom call. I don't have a presentation, and I'm just gonna talk a little bit about IPAIT. My name is Paul Kruse. I work for PMA Financial Network. We're based in Naperville. All we do is we work with public funds, and we manage about $37 billion in public funds in mostly in the Midwest. We also have an office in New York, Pennsylvania, and Florida. But we're mostly in Iowa, Illinois, Wisconsin, Minnesota, Nebraska. But anyway, we manage funds. Again, we manage the IPAIT fund. And I don't know if you've heard of it, but it's been around since 1987. It was started back the Iowa League of Cities, the Iowa State Association of Counties, and the Association of Municipal Utilities got together, and that's when it was started. The three entities that were the first ones were the Maquoketa Municipal Utilities, City of Fairfield, and Buchanan County. When those three entities got together, they started the fund. It's a fund that all the cities can use as a member of the Iowa League of Cities. I had this poster put or something like this at the Iowa League of Cities conference, and Tim Stiles is on our board. I don't know if you can see that. And again, I apologize. I should have had it blown up bigger, but this is what I want everybody to key on. So I was at the Iowa League of Cities, and Tim Stiles said, when we just had a little thing on our table, and it showed our rate. Back then, the rate was 252. So when was the League of Cities? September. So our rate was 252. Tim says you need a bigger poster to promote the rate. This morning I take that back. Yesterday morning it was 314. Today the rate is 320. So I don't know if how many of you remember, but the last time it was this high, it was 2008. So it's been almost 15 years since we've seen this rate this high. My position is basically to let everybody know that you should be getting the 320 rate. We manage the fund. Again, the fund has the investments are the same thing that all your cities can invest in. We invest in treasuries, agencies, and Iowa Bank CDs. One of the things, again, we've got over 450 public entities. We have the diversified portfolio. And the way that works is it's a money market fund. You have access to that, and you can transfer funds back and forth from your local bank to IPAIT daily. No cost. There's no minimum investment. So if, it's like, a lot of times I'll go to a city and they'll say, well, we don't have much funds. Well, if you got $5, there's no minimum. So that $5 would earn the 320 today. To give you an idea, again, talking about how rates have changed, a year ago, well, if I would have been here a year ago, our rate was 1 basis point. If you had $1 million in IPAIT, you would have earned $100 for the year. Today, that $1 million would earn you $32,000. So it's 320 times what the rate was a year ago. Again, it's a fund that you can use. There's no transaction costs. So it's all ACH. So the way you move the funds is you go online and you get a user ID and password, and you plug it in. As long as we know by 3 o'clock today, the funds will be back in your city tomorrow at no cost, and vice versa. So let's just say you invested today and you said, gee, I need money back. As long as by 3 o'clock, the funds will be back in your local bank. There's no minimum balances, unlimited sub accounts. I've got some cities that have upwards to 20 different accounts. They might have a general account. They might have an operating account. They might have a library account. They might have a parks account. Each account is maintained separately. So maybe you've got those accounts at your local bank. Well, we can set up a mirror account at IPAIT. The funds are The interest is paid monthly. So at the end of the month, you'll get the interest only just gets thrown back into your principal. It accrues daily. So again, it's going to go up a little higher. Excellent complement to existing bank relationships. We work with about 300 banks across Iowa. So chances are we're maybe working with your bank right now. We offer a fixed term program. So the fixed term program is CDs. So if you have a CD that's maturing and you want a rate, send me an email and say, what can you get from me today? This morning we quoted rates, let's see, 440 for a 6 month and 465 for a 12 month CD. We haven't seen those rates for a long time. To give you an idea how some of the cities use it, and I'm good with this. I said my goal is to get every city, and we work with the schools. So chances are we work with your school. We work with all but 5 schools in the state. So chances are one of your schools is already a participant in the ICEJET fund. That's the Iowa Schools Joint Investment Trust. But I met with a finance committee 3 weeks ago. And when I walked in, I recognized the president of the bank right away. He was there for another, he's on the industrial committee or industrial area committee. So he was there representing them. And I recognized him right away. And he goes, what are you here for? And I said, well, I'm going to talk about IPAIT. And he goes, well, you can leave anytime you want. And so anyway, we talked for a bit and I presented to the city. And they were getting 1.75, I think it was 1.5%. And I presented and I said, well, today's rate was like 275. And the president of the bank said, I will, just so you know, and he endorsed the IPAIT program, which was nice. He says, I think you guys should pass the resolution. But just so you know, the rate now is for the city is 275. So, and again, we would have loved to have the funds, but he picked up 100 basis points just by going to and saying, look, we want to keep it in town. And I get that. City councils want to keep it in town. Boards of supervisors want to keep it in town. But if you can earn another 10,000, yesterday I bid, again, it was a county. The rate was, we did 460 and the local bank did 410. And it was $2 million. And I got a email back. She goes, thank you for the bid, but we're going to keep it local. We want to keep it local. But she gave it $10,000 by going with a 410 versus a 460. Again, my deal is to get you the best rates. If you haven't passed the resolution, what I do is I meet with the councils, and that's what I did. Like I said, a couple weeks ago, I meet with them. I explain how it works, the benefits. We're, governed by a board of trustees. Your representatives are Tim Stiles from West Des Moines. He's the CFO at West Des Moines. Brent Henson from used to be at Washington. Now he's at Mason City, and Jeff Nemmers, CFO at Fort Dodge. So those are your representatives on the board. Alan Kemp is the executive director at Iowa League of Cities. He sits on our executive board. But it's one of those, again, the rates, we haven't seen this for a long time, and you need to look at it. I think, consider it. If you'd like me to meet with your board, your council, that's what I do. Again, CD bids, we also do treasuries. And I know a lot of the cities aren't used to using treasuries. And one of the things that, and I won't go into it today, but treasuries work a lot basically like CDs. They're purchased at a discount. So if you have $1 million treasury, it might be, $990,000, but it's going to mature at the million. We invest in treasuries. Treasuries quite often are a little higher than the CDs, and they're liquid. They're a little bit more liquid, so you can break them if you need to versus a CD. We can just sell the treasury. I don't know how many of you use IPAIT, or have passed the resolution.
Manchester.
Oh, sure, yeah. And again, it's you should at least pass the resolution. I presented to, I can't remember what county group it was. And after I presented, the board chairman, he goes, is there any reason, he goes, why we would not want to pass the resolution? And I said, well, I can't think of any reasons not to. But I sent him an email and I said, well, here's the reasons why I think you should pass it. First of all, it doesn't cost you anything. Passing the resolution, all that does is says, if your city wants to invest, you can. There's times when your local bank might look at it and say, hey, we don't need funds. And I've had school districts more often than cities, but schools call me and say, my bank doesn't want our money. As a matter of fact, we had a small school in Johnson County, they called and said, we have until the end of the month to move $3 million out. Well, fortunately, they had an ICE account set up, so we moved it out. So again, once you passed it, it's something that you can use no matter whether you use it as a lever or you actually invest. Yeah, it provides investment options for your liquid funds. Maybe you keep some of you don't have to keep all your funds in the bank. Maybe you have an account at the bank that's not earning interest. Sometimes the bank says, well, if it doesn't have this amount or this balance, it's going to be a zero balance account.
And you don't have balance limits or
No.
requirements?
No. So no minimum balances. So if you've got, like you said, $5, it doesn't matter.
0.75 on my little over $3 million in our checking account.
So 0.75 and 3 million. Yeah, that's real money. So again, that 3 million, you're gonna, almost $100,000 in interest, annualized. So yeah, no minimums. And the nice thing, again, you can say, well, okay, we're not going to pull that 3 million out, but maybe we're going to put, maybe it's 500,000, maybe it's $1 million. The other nice thing is if you pull that $3 million out and the bank calls you up and says, we'll pay you what IPAIT's paying, we'll pay the 320. That's fine. The next day you pull it back, you put it back in. It's liquid.
And you have that sample resolution that.
I do.
That's
Yeah.
It's on the website?
Yeah, and I'll send it to you, and what I'll do is I'll send you, if you send me my information is on the bottom of the. Okay. Yeah, and I'll sell it to you, so it's an infillable form, so you can just fill it in. When you see it, and the first thing, and everybody calls up and says, I think you sent me the wrong form because it has City of Fairfield, this has Buchanan County, and it has Makoki Utilities. And they're listed there because they were the first three that started the IP. Again, to get certificate of deposit rates for outside. So you're going to contact your local banks for CDs, and we're not going to contact them. So every time when I get an email and it says, has listed the 4 or 5 banks with my name from PMA, we know we're not going to call Midwest One, or we're not going to call Hills Bank and Trust, or we're not going to call People's Bank or Bankers Trust if that's your bank. So we're going to contact those other banks and we're going to get you the rate. Again, the nice thing is you can go to your bank and say, look, this is what we can get through IPAIT. Will you match it? Now, my example with the 410 versus the 460, again, I'm disappointed that she didn't get the 460. She should have. And like I said, we were set up to invest, and she says, well, my board of supervisors likes to keep it back in the account.
Are there monthly transaction limits?
No. So you could transfer, and there's no, there's no cost. So
too good to be true.
it's like I said, it's again ACH, so it's all there's no cost to that. And again, right now, like I said, if I'd been here a year ago, I'd be saying we'll get, or it's 1 basis point, 0.001. And, you know, but again, today's rate is much better, thanks to the Fed.
Do you have like your fees on your website?
What's that?
I'm assuming you charge fees, so are
No,
those on your
no.
website?
It's everything that I quote to you is net of fees. So the 320, so yeah, and people say, well, gee, how do you make money? And trust me, we do. As PMA does the marketing, we do the asset management, we do the administration, and then US Bank is our custodian.
Right, so you've worked it into the rate already. That's
Yeah,
fine.
yeah. So, yeah, when we say 320, that's what everybody gets. And watch, because like I said, yesterday's rate was 314. It's going to continue to rise. Now the Fed's going to meet next month again, and we think it's going to probably go up maybe another 50 to 75 basis points. That will put that rate up higher. The nice thing is, you know, again, banks are part of our business and we work with the banks closely. But when the Fed bumped the rate, was it November? Just a few. Friday. No, it was last Wednesday. They're not going to call you and say, oh, the Fed just bumped the rate. We're going to give you another 75 basis points.
Well, that's upsetting. They should.
They should.
I mean, come on.
Yeah.
They should take care of it.
Yeah. So, but again, they're not going to. And as long as, if you're happy with, as long as you're getting 0.75, I mean, they're not going to be, until you say something. And, you may go back and you may say, look, this is what I can get. Will you match it? And they might match it.
But that's disappointing, the fact that they're not matching it, and they're like, okay, never mind, we will now. That's frustrating.
Well, and I guess, so can I ask you a
Yes.
question? So if I call them, of course, today, later when I get to the office or tomorrow and say, okay, so we're looking at transferring some of our funds to IPAIT because we can get
Yep.
3.20. Do you ask them to put you at the current
Yeah.
rate that it's going at, or because
So,
why would I want to get locked in if it's gonna?
yeah, so for them, they're probably gonna lock it, or maybe they're gonna say, so, if you go to our website now, if you go to www.ipait.org.
Yeah.
And you go to our website, you'll see the rate. And
Okay,
like I said, that rate is what everybody's gonna get.
but if I put money with you, is it gonna keep changing every day? Then yesterday I would have got 3.14, or do you lock us?
No, so if you put in a $100,000 yesterday and it was invested at 314, today that rate is 320 on that same 100,000.
Oh, okay, yes, I see it.
And it shows, and it'll show you the 7-day yield. And I think that's a little over 3 because the rate has been going up.
If the rate goes down, then yes, you get that, whatever that rate
Yeah,
is.
yeah.
Right. Right.
But
You
like you said, for,
CD and lock it in on a CD.
yeah, and that's, and CDs, you might consider maybe laddering
It's
CDs.
been a long time since I've done CD.
Yeah.
I mean.
And there hasn't been any reason to, because, CDs haven't been a real good option either. Until, like I said, the Fed starts moving the rates, and so does, in this case, I think.
Are you trending up the rate for the 5 days has been trending up?
Oh, yeah. Like I said, so the first quarter, almost the whole first quarter of 2022, we were at 1 basis point. So now, like I said, putting that in perspective, today it's 320 basis points. Every time the Fed went up, our rate went up. And because what we invest in is treasuries and agencies, and that's what's part of the fund.
I think that's a good point about locking, or, because you're gonna move every single day, but a carryback conversation to our bank is, what assurances do you have for us that you're following the rate rises or you?
Yeah.
Right? So I think that's an important question, and one I haven't addressed yet, but I had the same experience where you have to go to them.
If you have your money in a regular savings account, then you're earning whatever the rate is. They're not locking you into a savings, or they shouldn't be, unless it's like a CD. If it's just a regular savings account, right, you should be earning whatever.
And this is money market fund,
Right.
exactly. And what you could do is you could say to your bank, because again, you just went on IPAIT.org. Everybody can do that. And you can say, look, just go to the website, and maybe what you do is you say, okay, what was the average rate for November or October? and say, okay, and then maybe they call you up and say, okay, well, we'll give you what the average rate was for the month of October. And because the chances are they're not going to, like in our case, keep going up. Again, just an option for funds when local banks do not want public funds. And we saw that a lot because of the property tax time. Our fund goes up straight up during property tax. There's several counties that have upwards to $80-90 million during tax receipt time. Now then it goes out, and then it goes to the cities, and then it goes to the school districts. So our ICE-JIT fund is up. To give you an idea, both of the funds are right around $1.4 billion. So on behalf of cities, counties, and utilities, we have about $1.4 billion, and that same amount for the school districts in the state of Iowa. So obviously it's utilized. It's not any secret, but while we're sitting here, West Des Moines School District moved $40 million into the Iowa Schools Joint Investment Trust. Again, a lot, and their rate is a little higher than what IPAIT is. Diversification, again, maybe you don't want to keep it all in your local bank, or you want, you have some in different banks. So diversification, laddering, especially for bond proceeds. What we'll do for bond proceeds is we'll match the draw schedule. So if you've got a project, maybe it's a fire station, maybe it's a new city, whatever, and this is how we're going to draw the money. We'll work with the architect and we'll get a draw schedule, and then we'll set that up so we know, maybe the draw schedule says we need 200,000 in November. So we'll put it in a fixed term investment, so it'll be a little higher. We just did, let's see, what was it? West Branch School District had $15 million bond issue. We invested. Their blended rate was like 4.75 because we kept some of it short and some of it long, but so the longer one obviously had the higher rates. Bank philosophies change, ownership change. I know in Des Moines, for example, Great Western just sold. BMO, Bank of Montreal, is coming into town, so they're things are changing. Again, ability to have unlimited accounts with daily access, and then the last one is online investment capabilities. So you can go online, you put in your user ID and password, and you'll see here's what I want to make a transaction. Or in the old days, I've been doing this for a while. You used to make a phone call, and you just say, this is Sally, and I need to make a transfer. I moved 50,000 from my local bank to IPAIT, and we'll move that for you. It's always in a closed loop, so the funds are either going to be at IPAIT or your local bank, and there's no way they can be outside of that loop. So when you call, we've got everything set up, and you just say, hey, can you move 100,000 to my local bank, or I need it moved back. I've covered a lot. I know hopefully I've answered some of your questions. My number, and I know that the gal that talked earlier, she said, oh, that's my personal number. Well, I only have one number. So the number, the 515-554-1555 is my number. So if you have a question over the weekend, you have a question at night, anytime, that's my number. So if you'd like me to meet with your council or board, that's what I do. So a lot of times, and I always tell, I say, invite your bank. I'm good with that. Banks understand that we're part of the, to help on the investment side. It's just another option, which reminds me too, IPAIT is an investment. It's not a depository. So I know I always get some, they say, well, gee, I have to add you to my depository list. IPAIT's an investment, just as a CD is, just as a money market fund is, just as a treasuries and things like that. I'll get you, again, I can send you the resolution that what we would need. my point always with that is, once it's passed, you don't need to do anything else. And so if rates change, you might not use it for a while. The only thing that does change quite often, if some of you have passed the resolution, you haven't used it for a while, we may need a new authorized signer, or we may need a new bank. And that's all we need. We don't need a resolution passed again at your city council, because they've already passed it. Difference with schools and cities don't normally change their names. When I started with schools, there was 450 schools. I think there's now 320. A lot of ABC schools, BCLUW, AHSTUV, West Fork now is, but anyway, so again, once it's passed, and if you don't know, maybe your council has passed it, shoot me an email and say, hey, have we passed the resolution? Maybe it's already been passed and all we need is new authorized signers and bank information, or new accounts set up. Any other questions? Like I said, if I'm heading down the road and you think of something, give me a call. Or like I said,
someone wants to know what the difference between basis points and interest, or is there one?
yeah, so, so 1 basis point, so 100 basis points is 1%. And that's all you need to really know. So 320 basis points is 3.2%. So yeah, we use basis points. And again, it used to be, for the longest time, it was just between banks, and what IPAIT was paying was basis points. It was maybe 2 or 3 basis points. Yeah, we're paying you at 0.005, and we were maybe at 0.004. And so the difference was a basis point.
Thanks for the information.
So appreciate your time. Again, it's
yeah, pretty much. It's like not a few, but it's like there's more work to do, and you
Well,
can get that bad person to call the bank.
and-
Of course, the banker is my brother, and so I call him.
well, and that's my point. And again, it's always, I said, you're entitled to get that rate, and it's what that's what this fund was set up for. Back in 1987, that's what they said. Let's do something that, and again, it was 2080 entity that was started.
You're talking no matter what the dollar amount is. I have 3 different accounts that because they require a balance in there, or you get charged service fees. And so I switched it to a no interest account. Well, that's not beneficial either. I need to get rid of that.
I presented years ago, I presented to a school board one time, and they had like $15 million. And the rates back then were probably a little better than what we are today. And they said, okay, the fees that they were waiving, because that was the bank's point, was, hey, look, we're waiving fees. And so, but if we did an analysis, and the difference between what they had waived and what they would have earned in interest was over $200,000. So it's so a lot of it's just the way the picture's painted.
So, Paul, I may have missed it before, but are you willing to go talk to city council?
Yes, that's what I do. So I've met so in the early years, so just so like you said, this started in 1987. I was the first guy that they hired to market this fund. Has anybody heard of the Iowa Trust? Mm-hmm. And I know it was a big deal in Dubuque, with Dubuque County back in the 1980 something, late 80s. And so they hired me to market the fund, and it's called the Iowa Public Agency Investment Trust. It's got the Iowa Trust is in the name. And I'm going to city councils, I'm going to boards of supervisors, I'm going to school boards, and explaining this fund where people lost a lot of money. Because of that, there was, everybody has to have an investment policy. they came up with Iowa 12B1. So now you've got the statute that says, here's what you can invest in. You can invest in anything but treasuries, agencies, commercial paper, which we don't allow it, where it's not part of our fund. This commercial paper is not in it, but it is allowable for the cities, and Iowa Bank CDs. And it shows how old I am, but when we started that, they said, okay, everybody has to have an investment policy. I would imagine every one of you, if you used the sample investment policy that was put out by the Iowa League of Cities, and I think it's number 4, has Iowa Public Agency Investment Trust as an approved investment. And the reason being is because me and Mark McClurg wrote the sample investment policy to include IPAIT. So most everybody has that in your investment policy already, or you should. So again, I appreciate your time.
Thank you.
If you pass the resolution, I printed some of these off because I thought, well, maybe some of you might have passed the resolution and you haven't. But this is the instructions on, and if you want to share it or whatever, this is how easy it is to make it an investment or withdrawal. So
We can just email you and find out whether or not we do.
yeah.
Because I'm 6 months on, so I
Yeah.
have no idea.
Yeah. So yeah, here's.
I think if you have the lead,
Like through Iowa Interactive, or you started with the very first thing?
yeah, I cash things, I believe, I think you have an IPAIT.
Paul, did you hear what Aaron said?
I think if we started with iCash or that old, I think we all have iPaid, and if you use that program through the league, their credit card processing.
Yeah,
I
where,
don't think so. It's a different resolution.
but yet we had to have an iPaid account because.
Oh,
Yeah.
You're right.
And then we had to reconcile.
I bet you're right, because IceJet had the same thing with Ice Cap, the Iowa
Okay.
Schools Cash Anticipation Program.
Because I would agree with Aaron, because there was something, because I do remember going through and setting up this account. Now granted, and
Well, shoot me an email and just say, hey,
Okay.
and then, like I said, the nice thing is, especially if all we need is an authorized signer,
okay.
you could be invested tomorrow, because it just takes, But if it's the resolution, like I said, does take a little more time.
As long as it's a bank, we used to do the credit union, but we got away from that once we didn't do CDs anymore. In fact, we used to do the number 1 CD that I wanted to get good interest rates there, but we don't. So I use all 3 of them. So my checking accounts after that.
Three banks.
Did West one will.
Yeah, I didn't realize that. I didn't realize it.
To give to your brothers. Oh, thank you very much. Where's your brother at?
Valley Bank. My son is there.
And it's the same information. PMA is the company. I work for. So I said.
I think.
Okay.
And
PMA is the company I work for, and I